Salut à vous mes gueux et mes gueux, c'est votre ami le clochard magique en direct comme vous avez pu le voir car vous savez lire, vous êtes des gens intelligents dotés de la parole et du pouvoir de communiquer. Alors je suis en direct de Yurakucho qui est donc une station jouxtant Ginza Station et qui est un quartier que je connais plutôt bien et dans lequel j'aime beaucoup me rendre car il y a pas mal de gargotes, des endroits un petit peu deep dans lesquels les salaryman ont l'habitude de sortir, boire des verres et se mettre sur le toit. Pourquoi est-ce que je suis à Yurakucho aujourd'hui? Pour la simple et bonne raison que je suis invité au concert de Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter, c'est une licence de jeux vidéo qui est extrêmement populaire, qui est développée par Capcom. Je sais pas pourquoi il me rappelle Mourad. Il se trouve que le thème principal de Monster Hunter Sunbreak a été interprété par ma meilleure pote Àlainn. Du coup là, c'est la bonne occasion pour partir à sa rencontre. Le temps est beau, le temps est chaud. Un peu comme moi d'ailleurs. Alors la raison pour laquelle est-ce que j'ai décidé d'aller filmer aujourd'hui ma pote Sarah, c'est parce que j'ai décidé de lancer un nouveau format sur ma chaîne où je vais partir à la rencontre des personnes que je connais et qui sont actives dans le milieu artistique, dans l'entrepreneuriat ou autre et qui font des choses. Évidemment vous aurez plus de détails concernant Sarah durant l'entretien pour vous teaser. C'est quelqu'un qui chante énormément dans les milieux de la Japanimation et des jeux vidéo. Regardez comme c'est grand et majestueux, un peu comme moi d'ailleurs. Et voici, on est en direct donc de ce forum international machin chose. Et le concert de Monster Hunter a lieu au Hall A. Est-ce que j'arrive à le toucher du doigt? Ah oui, j'y arrive. Le doigt magique, toujours en direction du cucu. Allez, suivez-moi. Bon, apparemment, l'ouverture des portes, c'est seulement à partir de 16 h et le concert commence à 17 h. Là, il est environ 12h30. Alors, moi, j'ai une autorisation pour venir ici dès midi, en fait, vu que je suis un vil squatter. Le clochard magique se faufile à droite à gauche, telle une murène. Je vous cache pas que je veux un petit peu aller gueuser, manger un truc, parce que ça me fait un peu chier d'attendre pendant des plombes à l'intérieur.
A few minutes later.
Putain, mais je suis dans le niveau de fin de Resident Evil là ou quoi? Avec la musique classique là. Bon, j'arrive, prendre rendez-vous pour aller backstage. Enfin, voilà, j'ai mon petit pass et compagnie. La bonne nouvelle, c'est que c'est hyper cool. J'ai l'autorisation de filmer quelques trucs. Alors, je vous avoue que de toute manière, mon but premier, c'était pas du tout de filmer le show ou quoi que ce soit. Surtout que moi, j'ai mon iPhone, hein. J'ai pas une caméra, je veux pas faire du Spielberg. En tout cas, c'est cool de leur part de me faire une fleur. Et en tout cas, je peux vaquer, filmer tout ce que je veux backstage. Et je peux également filmer les répétitions.
Salut.
Salut, ça va?
Ça va?
Ça va bien? I'm just going to follow you to the stage. Oh my god, that dress is amazing.
It's a Monster Hunter dress.
What?
So it's got the recent character from Sunbreak.
Oh my god.
Rosanna.
Alright, so I will be your chaperon to the stage. C'est trop stylé la robe. On dirait la princesse Athéna.
Do you recognize some of the tunes?
A little bit, yeah. Because of...
Beep.
Yeah. Even if I have 300 views with my video. Alors là, on va avoir droit aux répétitions. So how do you feel before hitting the stage?
Depends on every performance, I guess. Today, I'm only performing the one song today, and it's usually like a solo concert. It's 20 pieces, right? So it's a different kind of nerves, I guess. But it's exciting too.
So do you feel comfortable wearing that? Is it okay?
It looks nice. It's tough to walk. So I'm like stumbling.
Alors là, c'est avant le début du second acte. Moi, je vais me poser sur le côté pour aller filmer un petit peu. Donc ça, c'est l'avantage hein, de la franc-maçonnerie, les amis. Salut les gueux! C'est bien rempli, hein. Donc on m'avait pas menti quand on m'avait dit que c'était une full house. Bon, je me posais quand même une question concernant la popularité de Monster Hunter. Bah, la réponse elle est là. C'est plein quoi, là c'est la pause. Et cette salle a 4800 places quand même. Bah écoutez, super cool, hein. Comme je vous l'ai dit là, je m'attendais pas du tout à ça. On me donne en fait pas mal la permission de filmer en fait. S'ils savaient que je n'avais que 300 vues pour mes vidéos. Là elle va se changer, mettre un truc un petit peu plus relax et puis on va faire l'interview. À tout. Ok, là celui-là il est parti. Caméra 1, caméra 2. Ok, allez c'est parti. Alright, Sarah, how are you doing today?
It's before my Monster Hunter show.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
So, no, thanks for inviting me. So, how are you feeling? Not stressed? Everything's okay?
It's a good experience. It's big.
Definitely.
And it's very big. And
definitely.
I started off with game music, so it's been exactly more than 10 years actually since I released
It was
Xenoblade.
2009, 2010?
Around then, yeah.
Wow.
So
do you think you can do this interview in French?
oh,
Don't worry.
I was going to say something rude.
Oh, really?
No, but you got to
Right,
teach me.
you can keep it for the next time because I'm sure that pretty soon you will be able to do that in French as well, right?
I better. Yeah.
First thing first, I wanted to ask you if you remember how we connected and met for the first time.
Do I remember the actual day that we met?
No, not the day, but very nice memories for these guys outside as well.
No, I remember like our common friend, right? Etienne. So I was studying here and so was he. And then he kind of introduced us. That I remember.
Yeah, but you don't remember the part when I listened to that song Beyond the Sky.
Of course.
And then I just Googled your name and I found your Facebook page profile.
Yeah.
And then I just saw that we had friends in common. So I was like, this is weird. And Etienne was one of them. So Sarah, could you briefly introduce yourself to our viewers, please?
What kind of viewers do you have?
People speaking French. People speaking French. People who love Japan. People who love music, video game, and Japanimation as well.
Well, I was raised in Australia. My name's Àlainn, and I've been in Japan as a professional musician it's actually my 10th anniversary. So it's been 10 years since I released my first album. Before that, I released game music. That's when you discovered me, I guess. Xenoblade.
Yeah.
That
was the very first.
Very first time with a famous composer, Yasunori Mitsuda. I was still a student then. I guess they were looking for someone, a native English speaker who could sing, but I'd never recorded my voice. I didn't even know what I sounded like. So it was weird. So it was the first time going into a booth, and I didn't even realize the scale of it.
This is quite surprising because I know that you started making music at a very young age.
But it was violin.
How old were you when you started playing the violin? 5 years old?
Yeah. So in Australia, if anything, people only know me as a violinist, I guess. And then at university, I studied linguistics, languages, but it was more composing and, playing, right? So singing was completely out of the picture. So people in Australia, maybe to this day, they're like, oh, what, you can sing? So it's weird. But then people over here are like, what, you play an instrument? So it's strange how I'm perceived in different places.
So how did you start singing?
No, I've always loved it because I mean, with the violin, people usually say it's the instrument that's closest to the human voice. It's a very melodic instrument. I've always enjoyed singing, and it just so happened that when I was here on an exchange, one thing led to another. I was just there in this booth singing, right? But I didn't realize it was for such a prestigious game and a big composer, and then I met the composer. Yeah, it was a beautiful piece of music to a big game. Without that, I wouldn't have stayed in Japan, actually. Okay. I would have had to have gone back, done a master's or whatever. So I gave all of that up and I just stayed in Japan. Okay,
because that was actually my following question, but what brought you to Japan in the first place?
Definitely that piece of game music, Beyond the Sky. It was my key, because I've always wanted to do music, but of course it's a tough life, right, as an artist. I mean, times are tough. It's not about, it's about how lucky you are as well, and connections, and I had none of that, really, anywhere, especially in Japan. And the society, it's really about who you know, who your parents are, maybe. It's tricky. You don't have auditions and things here. Really,
Oh, really?
No, I mean...
You don't have, like, castings and things like that?
Not that I know of. It's just who you know, or what kind of... It's not even an agency, a management. So how big the management is, or how, well-connected you are. If you're not in the loop, it's hard to get in. Very hard. So I was very lucky. I never imagined starting a career in Japan, because if anything, I didn't want to go to Japan to begin with. Well, first, I do have Japanese blood, right? So I studied Italian, so I wanted to go to Europe. My parents were very strict Asians, and they're like, no, go to Japan. It's very safe, very clean, safe, It's going to be a year away from music. This is what I thought. So I went to the University of Tokyo. And so it's completely but academic, right? completely unrelated to music. But then, and then I met, if anything, it just led me closer to the path too.
So you were talking about your family, and speaking of your origins, you're half Japanese. And what is your other half?
It's actually quite complicated. We're talking about just nationality. Yes, technically my mum is from Japan, although she is mixed as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my granddad's side, apparently it's part Russian. But then on my dad's side, so I was raised in Australia, but my dad is technically by nationality Malaysian, but he's very mixed as well. I don't like to be defined by that, because I never lived in any of those countries. I was raised in Australia. My first language is English. And I had to study Japanese. So I don't feel at home anywhere, really.
You're a foreigner at home.
Yeah, exactly. You probably know.
Yeah, I know about
what it's like.
So you just talked about your first major breakthrough as an artist. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe your second breakthrough was when you took part in the TV show Kanjani no Shiawake.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us what is that show and what happened in particular?
So it was a karaoke show, I think, and it was just a battle. So you're battling against the karaoke system, but it's against another singer as well. I haven't actually talked about this anywhere, so this is good. I've always wanted to. They contacted me a few days before the actual show itself. And
what year was it? 2012?
Yeah, after 2012. I really didn't want to do it. I wasn't sure what was involved. It was like, it's not music, right? It's against a machine. But then people were like, come on, it's entertainment, and you're not doing it to win. And I'm like, okay. And it happened to be Let It Go, so from Frozen. And I mean, it's a great song. The singer, Mei J, she sings the Japanese version, and it was a big deal back then, right? And it was against her. And she had not defeated anyone. So it was like 20-something consecutive wins. So she became very famous because of that, the karaoke show too. So I'm like, okay, it's really not about winning or losing. It's just
taking part.
Yeah, taking part in it. And then, but it was very serious. And I'm like, but what if like the score, because I'd never done the thing. I'd never sang it in the karaoke machine. I'm like, what if it's like 50 or 40, you know? What if the score is bad? And so I went in there and I sang it. And it was a relatively high score, so I'm like, okay, it's not going to be embarrassing, so just do it. And I was shocked, so I went first, sang it. Let it go, let it go. The score was actually lower than I thought it would be, because I mean, I practiced and I researched a lot actually. So I went to different rooms in the same karaoke place, and I'm like trying to figure out like how the scoring system worked. Yeah, so it was a bit lower than I expected. So I was like, okay, it's you know. Not as good as I thought, but it was a good opportunity. But I ended up beating her score. I think people think the show is rigged because it's very easy, right? And as a viewer myself, you think that, right? But there was no reason for me to win. There was no promotion or anything backing it. So it's real. It was a shock. And then she lost to her own song. It was massive.
Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, the thing is that people lie, but not numbers, right?
Exactly.
So the thing is that after that, what happened? Because I think that you could feel there was some kind of rivalry between you and other female artists after that, right?
I guess so, in a way. That's how you're seen. But I think I was lucky in a way. I got out of it. I mean, I was on the show until it ended. Actually, I never lost on that show. Yeah, I mean, it was a good opportunity, but it's just entertainment, right? So I'm not here to. Music isn't about beating anyone, or there's no higher or lower or anything. It's just what you like, and yeah, it really helped like people to know who I was. So it was a great opportunity.
You worked with many different people, music composers. You worked on many different video games and anime. So right now, backstage, Monster Hunter, Philharmonic concerts. You also sing Isabelle, a theme song in Yakusoku no Neverland.
Yeah, I heard it's big in France.
It's huge. It's huge. If you check the numbers on YouTube, it's like 28 million views.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
right
and
now?
it's your voice, you know what I mean? So my question is, how did you connect with people and how did you start working with them? Was it like, oh, I like her voice, hello, can I work with you?
Pretty much though.
Okay.
So like I mentioned before, it's about who you know, it's connections, and one thing led to another. But the composer himself, he'd seen me, he'd actually worked with me on it was a concert at the Golden Pavilion, the King Kakuren in Kyoto. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
So, and
Le pavillon d'or.
To digress a bit, I wanted to come to Japan in the end because I'd read a book called The Golden Pavilion by Mishima Yukio. It's years down the track I was singing right in front of the Golden Pavilion and it was magical. That composer from The Promised Neverland, he was there and he'd heard me perform then. He actually wrote the song with my voice in mind. That's how we connected, really. And
it's quite impressive that you could perform at the Kinkakuji.
Oh, it's massive.
Because
yes,
it's not something like only the emperor or someone very special can go there.
Pretty much. There's no way that you can actually go around it or inside it.
Speaking of Yakusoku no Neverland song, and I know that you had like a live session on YouTube with the music composer, right?
Yes, yeah.
Why there are many Japanese music videos that are not available in foreign countries? Like, I don't know, they don't want to get views, they don't want to get money, they don't want to get, a wider audience, or?
I'm asking the same questions every single day, and I've been here for over 10 years and nothing. People are old-fashioned, right? Maybe they just want to protect, even with my own music videos, I can't release it.
Yeah.
I can't post it, even if it's my own arrangement, and it's tricky. It's a tricky culture.
Korea's soft power is like so huge with the dramas, the movies, and the K-pop, of course.
Oh, yes.
Do you think that Japan might learn from the Korean example? I think what is especially strong with the soft power coming from Japan is essentially anime and video games.
Yep.
But now like J-pop, music and movies and all that, I don't think people in foreign countries really watch them.
It's still very local, like even in terms of the language, right? Well, since you mentioned Korea, they speak various languages, right? But people here, you're in Japan, you speak Japanese. I don't feel like they're looking abroad.
You have Japanese blood, but you have this international background as well. So how do you feel about that? Like, I can imagine that you feel like kind of frustrated as well.
That's a word.
How do you think the industry could change in a better way, in your opinion?
Be a bit more open-minded, but it's tricky because it's a system, right? And it's tricky to be recognized in the system too. I think one of the fastest ways to gain respect in Japan in a way, even with Japanese blood, is probably to succeed elsewhere. And then you're going to be like, oh, Nihonjin no, the Japanese-blooded Àlainn, But right now it's still, what is she? Is she foreign? Is she so not Japanese enough, but maybe not foreign enough? Once you win like a Grammy or something, then it's going to be, she's Japanese. But until then, I think it's very difficult.
Let's go back 10 years ago.
Yep.
I remember we went once to a karaoke with Etienne.
Oh yeah, that I remember.
We talked about him at the beginning of the interview. And Etienne and I, we started singing the song Conte Partiro by Andrea Bocelli, right? Conte Partiro. Oh, sorry, that was super cringe.
No.
And years later, you were invited and featured on Bocelli's album, New Cinema?
Yeah, so this is it. Album. Yeah, if you can see it.
New Cinema. Okay, so how did you get on that album, and how did you meet Bocelli?
It's crazy, right? I think this was like a world tour, so it released this album, cinema music album. They were looking for a duet partner. So on the album, he's done a duet with Ariana Grande. There's one more girl she used to be in the Pussycat Dolls.
Nicole Scherzinger.
Yeah. So very, very good singers, right? And because he was coming to Japan, and they were looking for a performer, but of course it helped being from Universal Music. Maybe they got Andrea to listen to a few people, but he thought
you were the right match. That's why he didn't choose you. Probably not.
No, so it was very, very flattering, and then he came and
you performed on stage with him as well.
Yeah. One concert, actually, maybe it was in this place. We've got to double check, but it could have been right here, right here, International Forum, and so we did a duet and. It's crazy, and Andrea Bocelli knows you, right? Like you grow up, listen, his records are, in your home. But if I wasn't in Japan, maybe I wouldn't have had this opportunity. So I am grateful.
Did the same happen when you work on the album We Love Disney?
Exactly the same. Exactly the same. This to me was quite big because it's David Foster, and David Foster has produced like pretty much every single hit in the 90s or, you know.
Yeah, I Swear by All For One. You remember that song?
Yeah.
I swear, like a shadow that's by your side.
Yeah, like there were so many people on the album. They're like Neo and...
For the same reason. So I think this happened before Bocelli, and I remember going. And it was,
you went to LA, right?
Yeah, and for a day, like for a night. So because I had shows here. So I got the phone call a few days before, and they're like, "It's you. Do you want to do it?" And of course I'm going to do it. Yeah. So I literally went, slept for a few hours, did it, and then went back to Japan. So it was like...
That's crazy.
But I remember, so when I was in the studio, there was like Bocelli's music on the stand, and I'm like, oh wow, it's...
Yeah, because you work with him as well.
Yeah. And then, so it's crazy, but yeah, David Foster was massive.
Well, this is crazy how things go like full circle.
Yeah.
And there's another story that goes full circle as well. Is I remember when we talked together for like the first times on Facebook and all that. I remember you sent me a message and you told me, "Oh, I like your radical dreamers mentality.
Yes.
The fact that you're really trying hard and you're trying to do your best to achieve your goals and make your dreams come true and all that." Radical Dreamer is actually a song on Chrono Cross album, so composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, and you end up performing that song during Chrono Cross 20th anniversary live tour. What can you tell us about working with Mitsuda-san, and how was the show and all that?
Oh, the show was amazing. I mean, even for someone who hasn't played the game, so like it was like watching a movie. And the music is amazing, right? So imagine if you'd played, for someone who'd played the game, it must be so emotional.
Yeah. I would have cried.
And yeah, so and it was nice that Mitsuda-san, you know, he still called me to do this after a few years. Actually, so Radical Dreamers is obviously, it was an instrumental piece, but for his arranged album.
Yeah, there's some vocals.
Yeah. So he got me to write lyrics for previously instrumental pieces, including Radical Dreamers. Yeah, I mean, it's an honor.
You work with him like actually quite often because he produced your second album.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, this one. It's a self-titled album. This is
Sarah.
Sarah.
So he produced the whole album, right?
Yeah, and it has Beyond the Sky and the Japanese version. So some people get confused. They're like, there's no Japanese version in Xenoblade, but it was actually written for this album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's only an English version in the actual game itself. But,
because
And then after that, I mean, I've collaborated with Mitsuda-san for quite a few other games and anime, actually. Valkyria, Azul Revolution. I play the role of I guess she's the bringer of death in a way, right?
Are you with the long hair?
Oh yes. So if you hear my voice, it's bad news. Yeah, I mean he gets me to write lyrics, and so that I wrote in Latin because I'd studied Latin going back to my teenage years.
Oh my God, you can write in Latin?
But it worked. So.
Okay. No, I mean that's great because I studied Latin as well, but the only thing I can say is orbs, and that's it. Well, you talked about like so many different things that you've done, so many people you worked with. So are you feeling that you're living your dream?
I mean, the humble answer would be yes.
This is why I asked you this question, because I know your answer.
I know. He knows. Do I appreciate what I have? Yes, of course, and I believe I have been lucky. But am I frustrated? Yes. I mean, I still feel like, God, it's tricky to say.
You don't feel like truly, fully appreciated? Of course, I know you want more.
Of course, but that sounds, I'm not that ambitious is a bad thing, but like I think that I'm reduced always to a certain role or a type. What nationality are you? What kind of singer are you? How come you don't just think, how come you do this, you do that? So is appreciated the word? But I mean, not understood. I'm different, because it's unique. You'd think people would want that, but they want to put me in a box. It's still a fight. In a way.
So speaking of your position and what you just shared with us, I mean, you're a woman, you're mixed, and due to your gender and origins, what difficulties have you faced and are you facing in the Japanese society and Japanese music industry?
Oh God. It's probably everything you imagine, right? I mean, we're speechless. Even when I tweet something, when I'm tweeting in English, when I'm tweeting in Japanese, the content is different. I've got to be very careful with what I say. And even now, people think I'm speaking too much. You've just got to play a type of role. So, I mean, people tell me, don't talk much. during your concerts, because it's just sing. Being a girl here is tricky.
But whenever you say something or you want to express something, which is like a basic thing for an artist, but you always have to be careful, like you're walking on landmines and stuff like that.
Yeah. Are you a true artist here then? I mean, I can't speak for every single artist here. Unless you wield a lot of power, it's going to be difficult. I'm scared sometimes.
It's not easy, but could you tell us what is your best memory since you started your career?
I mean, with all the collaborations I had with the composers, that experience itself. So best is tricky because I feel like I'm fighting a lot constantly. But of course, like obviously people only see the result, and I have been lucky, I think, in terms of we're collaborating with, you know, prestigious people, and it's always an honor. I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that I'm still here 10 years after the album, and I'm still trying, and it's...
Yeah, you're still here, and you just released your new album,
oh, thank you.
One,
yeah,
which is your 5th album. How different is it from your previous releases?
First of all, it's all covers, but so I'm trying to break through these, I guess, the typecast, right? So it's easy for people to think, oh no, she wears the long dresses, she sings very high. I mean, that's only one part of me. So like in terms of genre, like of course there's an opera piece, there's Queen, and there's an electric violin. It just showcases various sides of me, and I suppose the message too is much stronger than it was before. So Speechless as well, it's a Disney song, but it's, you know, speaks of how minorities are left speechless, and it gives me a good opportunity to address issues which are taboo, and I guess mental health too. People know about it, but I mean the suicide rate has always been high, and it's still so high, and women especially in their 20s during the pandemic. Unfortunately, my friend too, as you know, and I dedicate one song to her. But it's a tough world to be yourself. Yeah, especially since like mental health issues in Japan is such a taboo thing. It's taboo. When you say mental health, the word itself, you're like, ugh, just be cute. At the moment, you're expressing yourself as an artist and as a woman. What are your future goals? Goals I have a lot of, actually. And I know I would love to go to France. I know my French is non-existent now, but I was made in France. Interesting. But I've always wanted to go to Europe anyway. That's why I studied Italian, and Japan is great, but you know, I can always come back here, I guess. So it's just meeting new people and really focusing more as an artist, I think. The musical scene in general in France is like, it's so dynamic. I mean, I know things from like an urban perspective, but even like the anime fans and the scene there, because of course this is a card that you can play there. Like, and do you have any words or advice for people wishing to start an artistic career and or to come to Japan, maybe? Good luck with coming to Japan first, right? The both of us can speak for a bit. I mean, we're not going to lie, it is difficult. It's a very difficult system. It's not easy. But the radical dreamer philosophy, right? You do not, you do not stop trying. Even in cases like myself, it's tough. Of course, it's tough. Anywhere around the world, there's going to be hurdles anywhere. But I thought about it a few days before. Someone told me like, "Oh, dude, you live in Japan. You're doing this. You work with these people and all that. You made it. Because they just have the image like, okay, I'm in Japan. I made it, and that's big in Japan. Yeah, exactly. And you know the meaning of what is big in Japan is like usually when people they lie about their situation and they're like losers in their own country, they say that, oh, but I'm big in Japan. So usually this is something quite not positive. So don't get disillusioned. Any last words? Last words? Yeah. Thank you, Tuan. Maybe you can teach me something in French that I can say to your viewers. What can you say in French? Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. D'avoir regardé la vidéo. Acheté mes albums. Well, am I gonna? You don't have to. No pressure. She understood. Yeah, I get it. No, but thanks for watching. Follow, subscribe.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Alright, so thank you very much. Merci
Thank you.
beaucoup de ton temps pour la vidéo. Donc, mesdames et messieurs, mes gueuses et mes gueux, n'oubliez pas, allez checker sa chaîne. Je vais mettre tous les liens dans la description. Donc, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, @Àlainn. Enfin, je vais mettre un petit truc qui va apparaître ici quelque part. Donc, allez cliquer dessus, allez découvrir sa musique. Il n'y a pas seulement les collaborations musicales dans les jeux vidéo et la Japanimation. Il y a également les projets solo qui sont là sur la petite table derrière. Merci. D'avoir regardé.
Take care. Bisous.
Salut.
Be a radical dreamer.
Rap. Franchement, c'était tellement cool. Écoutez, j'espère que ce nouveau format vous plaît. Partir un petit peu à la rencontre des gens qui font des choses. Des gens particulièrement qui sont dans l'art. Grand merci à Sarah pour son temps et pour son accueil ainsi qu'à toute son équipe. Et vraiment aussi un grand merci à Capcom de m'avoir toléré, de m'avoir laissé traîner, de m'avoir laissé filmer, etc. Et voilà, c'est toujours plaisir d'être entouré d'amis, d'artistes, de gens qui t'inspirent, de gens qui te motivent. J'espère également que cette petite vidéo vous aura aussi motivé à faire ce que vous êtes peut-être bon à faire. En tout cas, n'oubliez pas de vous abonner à cette chaîne, de liker, de commenter et de me dire voilà, qu'est-ce que vous avez pensé de l'entretien, est-ce que vous avez des questions supplémentaires. C'était le clochard magique, je vous souhaite une bonne soirée. Moi je vais aller boire des coups maintenant. Salut.